Welcome to Alchemy, the podcast for HR professionals who are ready to experience what's possible from the inside out. I'm your host, Sarah Maud, former HR insider and transformational coach. And I'm here to guide you into a new paradigm of HR leadership with the science, the energy, and the insights that create true, lasting transformation. So subscribe and join the movement, and let's create the future of HR together. Hello there, and welcome back. Or if this is your first time, then thank you for joining me in this space. And I set the intention that your time here today is one that proves to be enlightening. Because the topic that I'm diving into today is one of resilience. And for me, resilience and resilience training is a subject that I feel really passionately about. I've been delivering resilience training for over a decade now. But today, I want to present to you a very different understanding of this very well used phrase, resilience, particularly when it comes to the workplace. And the inspiration for today's episode came from a conversation that I had with a learning and development manager recently, who was talking to me about how his managers were really struggling. Big organization, going through a lot of change. And I said, well, talk me through, what is it that you're seeing that lets you know that people are struggling? And he said, well, I think it's a combination of different things. I think there's been so much change within the organization and the volume of change. He said, but we're seeing a lot more burnout within managers. We're kind of just getting this real sense that people are disengaged, that they're not as motivated. We're seeing a ripple effect in absence within their team, an increase in mental health problems. We're seeing some parts of the business where they're not meeting their objectives, their client deliverables. And, we need something to happen here to get people back on track. And I said, well, what do you think that looks like? And he said, well, I think we need to build resilience within our managers. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, but what is it that you think that resilience training is going to give your managers? And he said, well, I think it will help them to proactively manage change more effectively, both within themselves and within their teams. Now, again, on the surface, all of that makes sense. But what I'm really curious about, and what I've had a long fascination with over the last 14 years, is why do people struggle in the first place? Because what I see within organizations is this assumption that people are struggling because of what is happening in their environment. So in this example, change. So the training and development manager believes that people are struggling because there's this volume of change, this pace of change, managers not navigating it effectively. But what I know to be true from all of the work that I've done with people is, if we were to split a workforce into two different camps. The ones that are able to navigate change easily, effortlessly. They're able to take it in their stride. Their performance is consistent. They're on board. Everything's great. And then the people that struggle with change. They struggle, maybe they're resistant to change, they push against change, their performance declines, their engagement declines, maybe there's an increase in absence. If we were to look at these two different groups of people, say, well, what is the difference between them? Because if it was really about the change, if it was about the specific nature of the change, whether it was about a new change initiative, maybe there's a restructure, maybe there's a merger and acquisition, whatever the change is, if it was really about the change, well, then surely everybody would respond in the same way. But they don't, do they? So what's the difference between the people that respond well and navigate through change and the people that struggle with it? And this is where we come back to this word resilient. And we say, well, some people are just more resilient. Now, if I take an even bigger step back and I say, well, what makes somebody resilient in the first place? What is it that allows somebody to navigate situations resiliently? Or maybe they're not even navigating situations with resilience. Maybe this is something that they're just simply able to operate from as their normal, natural self. Like, do we have to be resilient to be able to deal with a situation? Or is it possible that we can deal with a situation just in the way that we normally show up to any situation? Because if we start to talk about building resilience, well, then that implies that we don't already have something. That implies that the reason that we're impacted by something is because of an external factor. So in this example, change. So if I can't navigate change, well, then I need to build my resilience. But I've got a completely different view of resilience that I'd love to put to you, which is the understanding of what is creating your experience moment to moment to moment. And the understanding that what is creating your experience is not driven by the outer world, is not driven by the outer environment, is not driven by whatever the change initiative is. Instead, what governs your experience moment to moment to moment are your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your perceptions, your assumptions, and the conditioning within the nervous system. So if we think about how we experience something, well, we know that over 90%, 95% of everything that you're experiencing at any single moment is an unconscious one. And so what's driving that experience, what's creating that experience, is the unconscious structures, the neural circuitry, which is governing the way that you think, your beliefs, your assumptions, your emotions, and the conditioned responses in the nervous system. And so when we're experiencing something, what the brain is always trying to do is it's trying to look for cause and effect. It looks to the outside world and it says, oh, this is why I feel stressed. This is why I feel frustrated. This is why I feel impatient or fearful or insecure. It's because the organization's going through this change. It's because of this new change initiative at work. It's because of this new hybrid working model. It's because of whatever the change is. We make the assumption that I feel the way that I feel because of this. And that's what the brain does. It creates an association. The brain is an association machine. And it always wants to know, why do I feel the way that I feel? And it's always scanning the external environment to try to understand why it feels the way that it feels. But the truth is, everything that you're feeling and experiencing right now is coming from the inner world, that inner reality that is created based on that perceptual map and model that you carry around inside your brain, inside your physiology, inside the nervous system. So when it comes to resilience training, so much resilience training still heavily leans on coping strategies. But if we lean heavily on coping strategies, then what we're still implying is the way that you feel is because of the change. So here's a technique to cope with that change. Here's a strategy to help you navigate that change. And what that doesn't do is it doesn't create the understanding or the self-awareness within an individual of their reaction in the first place. And I know from having worked with so many people and also thinking about my time in HR, where I headed up goodness knows how many different change initiatives, is if we take something like a restructure, well, if somebody's been given notice of a change and they don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, well, then they're in the unfamiliar. They're in unfamiliar territory. And in that situation, the survival instincts kick in. We activate those survival-based responses because we're not in control. We don't know what's going to happen. And yet, there are some people that are in the situation where they've been given notice and they say, okay, well, we'll just see what happens. That there's no point in worrying about it. That they'll go through the process and they'll go through the process and have a very different experience to somebody that's feeling really stressed, feeling worried, insecure, all of those things. Now, this is not to downplay our experience as a human. This is not to say that we're not going to have human responses. You know, put a human in a situation where they can't predict something, then they're in the unknown. And to the mind and the body, the unknown means I'm not safe. And that is what's impacting their ability to deal with a situation. It's not coming from the situation, it's coming from their perception of the situation, their thinking, their emotional reaction. And that can be quite hard to get your head around. But the more that we can raise people's awareness and understanding of the nature of thought, their emotions, where we can teach them how to settle themselves back, where we can teach them how to calm the nervous system, that we can teach them what is really creating their experience are the thoughts that are taking form in the moment. Well, then we're not building resilience, we're empowering people with something far, far greater than that. We're giving them the knowledge and understanding of how any experience is unfolding, period. And one of the greatest things that I've seen in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people is when they see this, it's like, ah, I am the solution. I'm the solution, because the person that's creating the angst and the worry and the fear is me. It's not the outside world. It's not the situation at work. It's not the change initiative. It's me. And when they're able to see that, well, then they're in control. Then they're in control of their mind and their body. Then they're in control of how they're experiencing something in the moment. And that's not to say that change isn't going to happen. Of course, change happens. We're always changing, always evolving. The workplace, the landscape. We were born to change. We were born to evolve. But the illusion that we need to build resilience is based on a very old understanding, a very old paradigm of resilience, where resilience used to be something that you used to have to almost brace yourself against. You had to build yourself up to deal with a situation. And it's like, well, what if we stopped implying that we don't have resilience? Because when the mind is calm and the nervous system is settled and the nervous system is in balance, we're not in the sympathetic response, which is the survival-based response, well, then we are naturally going to have everything that we need to be able to deal with a situation. But we can't navigate any situation when the mind is constantly in survival-based thinking and the body's on emergency alert. So in order to give our managers and the people in our organization what they need to be able to deal with any situation that comes across their path, is to direct them back to the knowing that everything they need, they've already got. You have access to an innate intelligence. You have access to innate wisdom, to clarity, to intuition, to your own inner guidance system. You already have calm, balance, security. You have everything that you need because those feelings, those states of being are our natural state. We always have everything that we need. And the only reason that it doesn't seem like that in the moment is because we've got tangled up in our thinking and our beliefs and our perceptions that we're making something mean something that it's not. Or that we've been operating from survival-based thinking and feeling for so long that that's like trying to drive a car without any engine and petrol in it. So my invitation is this, that yes, let's keep delivering resilience training in the workplace, but let's completely rethink the understanding of resilience. And I would love to hear how this has landed and what you're able to see that perhaps you weren't able to see before. So do please share your comments, and I look forward to sharing this space with you again. But until then, have a wonderful day.